In the wake of Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, Democrats have put on a united front, launching investigations, filing motions to subpoena the FCC chair, and demanding calls for his resignation. And joining us now, Democratic Senator of Connecticut, Chris Murphy. He is part of a group of congressional Democrats that unveiled the No Political Enemies Act, legislation they say will help protect speech targeted by Trump. Senator, welcome. So glad you're here to talk about this. Beyond Kimmel, we heard the president take it even further yesterday, suggesting that TV licenses should be pulled over unflattering coverage of him. And the FCC chair himself said Kimmel's not going to be the last shoe to drop. So what role can Democrats play protecting free speech when you are in the minority?
Yeah, I think you're right that we are seeing a number of unfolding free speech crises. One is, clearly this ongoing threat from Trump to take down off the air, using his administration's regulatory power, any actors that are disagreeing with him politically. But there's also something else really insidious happening behind the scenes, and that is the consolidation of ownership of local news in this country. The company that sort of led the charge to take down Kimmel is a company called Nexstar. They are trying to merge with another big owner of local cable news. Between Nexstar and Sinclair, you have two companies that have clearly shown an interest in taking down political enemies of Donald Trump, proffering his own propaganda, who will now sort of own the majority of local news in this country. So it's not just that Trump is going to be in a position in a targeted way to take down his political enemies. He's going to have these two companies that have mass scale of ownership of local news and programming. This is a real harrowing moment. We're going to have to use the legal system. A lot of what the FCC is doing is likely illegal, but we are also going to have to put pressure on these companies so that they understand there's a cost to their business if they continue to fold in with Trump's efforts to repress political speech.
You know, Senator, you mentioned Nexstar, and as I was reading to your point, what they would cumulatively then have, it was something like 80% of access to television stations in this country. My eyes popped at that. Is that something that would likely pass muster and happen in the first place?
So that is illegal today. So right now, it is essentially illegal for any individual company to own ownership of stations in more than 40% of markets. And that restriction exists for a lot of reasons. First, you just don't want to have any company having that much control of speech and local news in this country. But it's also just bad to have that much kind of national ownership of local news. You want local companies to own these stations to an extent, at least. But the FCC chairman has signaled that he's willing to change that rule, that he's willing to go beyond the 40% at the very moment that he was putting pressure on Nexstar to take Jimmy Kimmel down off the air. So you have to understand, these things work in tandem. The Trump administration offers something to these big companies that will make their owners billionaires, and then in turn, the big companies repress political speech or service Donald Trump's propaganda machine. This is a quid pro quo that seems to be happening in open view of everyone in the country.
You know, Senator, you've got a reputation for trying to find common ground on really difficult issues with Republicans, whether it's on guns or immigration. It's a good rep to have, by the way. Are you having any conversations with your Republican colleagues about this issue? Are any of them on board with this bill?
We don't have any Republican interest in this bill right now. Our legislation, the No Political Enemies Act, it just gives additional defenses in court for individuals who are arrested for free speech offenses. But I think that this is an interesting moment because it's very possible that Trump has gone too far, even for his own base. You have started to see some reliable Trump allies speaking out and saying, listen, conservatives shouldn't be for a censorship state. What happens if Democrats eventually are in control and they have that power as well? So it may be that just like the Epstein scandal is splintering his base, that his overreach on trying to control speech in this country is going to cause him some problems as well.
In terms of that, do you see this issue of free speech as being one that could potentially chip into the president's own base, potentially drive voters toward Democrats in the next election?
Well, only if we express a real sense of outrage over this. And sometimes we have a habit of, letting Trump's press conference schedule or his social media posting schedule dictate what we talk about. We have got to be focused on this repression of free speech every day, today, tomorrow, through the weekend, all next week. If we do that, like we properly focused on the hiding of the Epstein files, we will be able to not just talk to people who agree with us, but be in communication with people who disagree with us as well. But that also means that we've got to, not just talk to you guys, but go on to Fox News, go into conservative audiences and have a conversation with them, be in conservative states, be in red districts, and ask them, do you really want a government that is going to tell you what you can say and what you can't say, that is going to take down off the air people who just cast dissenting views from the regime? I think there's a lot of hostility to that in the right wing, but we've got to be in that direct communication with those conservative voters.
In terms of what you've just said about communication, Jeremy Peters of the New York Times was here in the last block, and he said that you're not hearing Republicans in the White House express any concern about that. To your point, though, sir, do you have Republicans that you think might be able to whisper in the ear of folks within the White House administration to make a difference and back off on this? This is not something that the average Republican, the conservative ideology, supports.
No, that's right. I mean, listen, Republican senators are not going to be convinced by hallway conversations with Senate Democrats. I just want to be honest, right? They are only going to feel the need to go to the White House and say enough if their own base, if their voters are telling them as such. So you have seen interesting voices like Barry Weiss and Tucker Carlson already starting to say, listen, this has gone too far. And again, if we are purposeful, in some ways making this conversation non-political, just saying this is a basic American value. What are we as a country if we don't come to a joint conclusion, left and right, that no government, no president should be able to control or sanction your speech just because he doesn't like it? If we make that conversation apolitical, I think you'll see more of these high-profile conservative voices starting to speak up. And if that happens, then Republicans in the Senate will be more likely to go to the president and say, okay, this is going to cause us problems in the midterm elections, in special elections. Let's dial it down.
All right, Senator Chris Murphy, thank you, sir, for your time. Appreciate that.
Thank you.